I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 8 of The Last of Us series. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to HBO Max, check that episode out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Everything from episode 8 of The Last of Us series. It's Johnny Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Lots.
I
feel like I always say that, but it's true. I mean, there's so much to recap. There's so much to watch. Like this, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to kind of pick and choose what series we want to recap, just because there's not enough time in our days and our weeks to recap everything we want. We're gonna have to start like doing those retro recaps to make up for the series that we kind of have to skip. I guess it's not even skipping by choice. We still watch them, but it's getting harder and harder. It's a good problem to have. I'm not complaining on that, but just so much
content.
Anyway, Last of Us episode 8. We got a continuation right from episode 7, which ended with Ellie, trying to keep Joel alive, basically,
right.
Like choosing to stay with him, and again, we go with like, I don't know if Ellie understands how medicine works. Because we have her, and I know I'm skipping to the end, like towards the very far end of the episode. We have her stabbing the penicillin right into his wound in a couple of times. Like, I don't think that goes there. I feel like that's just going into his like open body cavity at that point, right? Like,
I mean, she's a young kid, so I don't expect her to have professional medical training. So I imagine just doing whatever she feels like is the right idea. Like, remember when she got bit, she was trying to wipe off the bite, and she's doing all these things that in her head she thinks would work. So, I mean, and to agree, it did work. I mean, Joel gets up on his feet later on. So
yeah. I mean, whatever works, I guess, in a dire situation. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the overall, my overall stance on this episode is,
boy, that escalated quickly.
Like, that's the best way I can describe this episode, because we have Ellie basically trying to keep Joel alive, and running out of food for herself, and leaving little scraps for him in case he wakes up and he is hungry and stuff like that. But we see her trying to put some skills to the test, to the process. I basically she's going hunting, and she's successful. Like she got an entire buck basically on her own. And before that, I mean, she was missing like rabbits and stuff like that, but she was able to get an entire deer. Like I've never gone hunting before, but I'm assuming that's pretty good. That's pretty good talent to be able to do that. To not get close enough to scare it away, but you're close enough to be able to see it through a scope.
She took the lessons that Joel was giving her up until that point and put it to use, and it was key to their survival.
Yeah, and I mean, from there, the episode just gets crazier and crazier. We have so much to get into, and we'll get into all of it and kind of big takeaways and maybe even predictions throughout that. But yeah, the only thing I could say is my reaction to this episode was, boy, that escalated quickly. And I'll say that over and over again. But yeah, Rico, what were some of your initial impressions of episode 8?
This was a a really great episode. It was a part of the game that I was looking forward to seeing done on screen, of course, with the introduction of the very evil David and his kind of like his crew of cannibals and stuff like that. Which
Yeah.
that whole storyline in and of itself is just kind of wild from beginning to end. Just the way they portrayed David as kind of like this, hey, I'm a man of God doing what I can for my people, but he's also kind of like using that to his own, his own power, his own advantage, and clearly kind of like using it to as a source of fear, I guess, for these people, because you can tell these people are like not necessarily comfortable living with them, but they're also kind of like under a spell. It's very cult like behavior.
Oh yeah.
So that was very interesting aspect to see of this part of the world. But also, we get to see a cameo from one of the original Joel and Ellie. This part be Troy Baker, who played Joel in the game. So, anytime when you get the scenes where like he was talking with Bella Ramsey's Ellie was really cool because you're just watching like these like two different generations interact with each other. Like you watch comic book movies, you see like someone who used to play Batman in a movie with like the current day Batman or something like that. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is like it's that same kind of feel, but in the video game sense that I like that kind of passing of the torch feel, right? So watching those two interact with each other and also the kind of way he played off of David was really cool. Like clearly was working alongside him, but again showed that aspect of how David ruled through fear as well. Like there was one particularly creepy scene where Troy Baker's character kind of throws back his kind of religious like logic back at David, and David kind of like feels the minute that he feels like his power feels like threatened or being used against him, he kind of starts to like that's where the scary part of him comes out. And it was like you could tell how that little dynamic between him and those people shows right there. So incredible performances by him overall. And so yeah, like next week we'll be talking about Ashley Johnson, which is really cool. But getting to see the originals in the show, we got to see the original Tommy. Marlene is played by the same character,
Yep.
actress too. So that's really cool. So yeah, I think I really love the way that they've been able to incorporate the game cast into the show.
Yeah, that is really awesome. I mean, it goes in with like all of the kind of Easter eggs that they're able to put into the series, and I mean, it all goes back to the working with the people from the game in general, and
Mhm.
it's just a really cool way to have developed this show from the source material and everything like that. And yeah, I can't speak enough about how cool it was to see him in here, and I was sitting there and listening, and I was like, that's the voice. There, he's got
Mhm.
the voice a little bit. It's right there. It's still there a little bit. But it was interesting to kind of see the interviews where he was talking about being on set and playing a different character and not remembering who the character was when they told him what character they wanted him to kind of be.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool interview to hear, and to hear him like kind of going back into that world, but having to take a different kind of stance in that world that he'd played for so long, basically.
Yeah. And what a brutal ending for his character too, man. Straight cleaver right through
Whoa,
the right through the shoulder, man. Like one of the more graphic deaths of the series for sure. And it was great.
oh man. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to kick us off with big takeaways. I was really excited that you kind of led with all of that because, I mean, it really goes into the overall takeaway that I was talking about. But I had to bring up again, just like what you were saying with, how David kind of had this, well, I am just, a leader from God. I'm trying to help this group of people, like survive and all of this. But when pushed, it's not reverence, it's
Mhm.
fucking fear. Like they're
Mhm.
all just here because of fear. And I didn't even know if they were gonna go the hey, we eat people route. But when you get to the end of the episode, you remember little things in the episode that go, oh shit. They were pointing at that all along. Because like the little girl who just wanted to bury her dad, and they were like, "Oh, it's too cold to dig the ground," and you're like, "Oh," because you find at the
Yeah.
end,
And then him sitting in like his seat that the dad would be in, normally, and
right?
possibly them eating it. It's just like, yeah.
And the time that one of them walks in with a whole bunch of like ground meat and stuff like that, and they go, "What is this?" And they go, "It's venison." And Like later, you know,
and it's that whole thing with them getting the deer too. So you're in your head, you're kind of thinking like, oh, and then it slowly kind of starts to get put together. And you're just like, no, 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 no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no, no, no,
I don't
no,
like
no.
that.
But yeah, I mean, that just it just goes so much, so many instances where you do see that David is really, he is this horrible,
Sadistic,
terrifying, terrifying person and terrifying like leader. Like Colt, I think was a perfect like way to do that because these people are kind of, you know, they're stuck with him, whether they, you know, are
Stockholm
begrudgingly
syndrome type stuff.
yeah. But really, this kind of just points into a lot of, you know, material about like apocalypse and stuff like that. It points to the fact that kind of like the survivors, the humans, end up being kind of the scariest part of surviving the apocalypse. It's not like, you know, the zombies or in this case the infected and stuff like that. It really shows us that like no, it's humans. Like we've seen this multiple times with people killing people. Like that's what you really have to watch out for. Like, yeah, I mean the infected are, you know, not to be messed with, but at the same time, like you are under attack from living people more often than not. And
Oh yeah.
that's what I mean, that's the biggest for me, the biggest takeaway kind of from this episode is that the scariest part of, you know, the Last of Us apocalyptic world is the survivors basically is just, you know, not trusting people who seem like they might be okay because they're not. They're not at all. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from this episode?
I want to talk about basically like the whole later end of the episode when, you know, Ellie's already been kind of captured by David, like taken a prisoner. And, you know, first of all, that room that she's in when she sees the ear on the floor and the fact that you have to think about that, like the people that were waiting there were watching the people get butchered in front of them, knowing that they probably had to be next. So like there's that weird sense of fear that they put into the people, you know, fear seasons the meat and all that, whatever it is. But it's just like that whole thing that made it even more creepier. But then, you know, Ellie gets her moment, you know, when she breaks David's finger and then she cleavers Troy Baker to death, rip. But but then it turns into the big part from the game, like, you know, the big boss fight of the whole sequence when you know, with that whole dining hall catches on fire and you're kind of you know, stalking around the whole place trying to hide from David. And you in the game you have to make sure you don't step on like glass and stuff like that or make any kind of noise, otherwise he becomes aware of you and he just becomes a lot harder to deal with. And there's some really cool detail in the game, like when Ellie first jumps at him, she yells and she alerts David. So David was able to like turn around and fend her off, which is like perfect, just like the game. Like if you made noise coming at him, he would have done the same thing in the game, which is really cool. And then of course her just coming in, just giving him like that shiv right into the stomach, which is perfect. And then she finally like you know, in the first episode we got to see Joel's primal side come out when he beat that officer to death, right? That was really like our first glimpse of like a really dark Joel. And we saw the way that Ellie reacted to that. And I think this is the moment that we got to see her primal side come out because she brutally murders David. And thankfully they didn't show, I don't know if I can't remember if they showed his face or not. I don't think they did, but he was,
I don't think so.
yeah, whatever she did to his face was not pretty. And of course, man, the way she just kind of like clicks into that, like, you know, rage monster and just goes ham on him was amazing. She escapes, and of course, she's met immediately by Joel, who you know, starts to snap her out of it, and probably one of the most heartwarming moments of the entire series when he calls her baby girl, and you see that one focus on the watch to really kind of end the episode. But not only did we see, you know, Ellie's primal side come out, we got to see a little bit more of Joel's primal side come out too, because when he's finally kind of healed up and he's able to get out, he traps a couple of David's men, and boy, it just like in the game, he, you know, puts the the knife in the guy's mouth and tells him the point where kills the other guy and goes, "Well, I told you." He goes, I believe him," and then, you know, boom, brutally murders both guys and himself. Uh, so I just love that the game did not pull like those kind of punches, like just for the sake of them being like the heroes. Like, no, these were people willing to do bad stuff to do what they had to do. So, man, like absolutely love there was a lot of very like shot for shot moments from the game in here, from the first interaction with David when when she's holding him at gunpoint to again the fight with David, and of course the Joel interrogation and stuff. So just beautiful work all around from the showrunners to the actors and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we've been saying that every episode, and it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
it just really goes to show how, well thought out, well planned, well written this entire episode, or not the entire episode, the entire series was, and the source material. Because obviously, both of them have to be good to get such a good product overall. But the fact that both of them are great is incredible. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It was really interesting to kind of see the real life versions, I guess the in-person versions of the kind of the video game areas. Like just like you said, it did feel like exactly like a boss fight. And that was perfect. I'm all for that. And I think that's where a lot of video game adaptations kind of fall flat is where you don't have that rise in tension, or you don't have where it actually feels like this is coming right from what we have played in the past type of thing, or what we've experienced in the past type of thing, because they can't really boss battles are usually larger than life, because I mean you don't have boss battles in real life, but this really felt like that, and it they did it in a real life sense of this could really happen. The only thing that I'm questioning, and it's in universe question, not creating of it or anything like that, is where is everybody when this place is going up in flames? If you're part of a small community, and you notice a big banquet hall that you go to every day for your meals is on fire and it's light out. It's not like this was happening in the middle of the night or anything. Where is everyone? What is going on? Or did they just not care? They were just like, well,
maybe they were just secretly hoping David was in there and just
exactly. Maybe they're like, well,
I would totally believe that.
Good riddance. And also, when you said when Joel meets up with Ellie, I know that's meant to be like a really heartwarming moment, and that's exactly what it felt like and everything like that. But they just kind of moseyed away, you know what I mean? They just kind of moseyed. There's no one chasing after them or anything. And I get the point. I totally get the point of this. This is not critique on the episode whatsoever. I thought it was very well done. I thought, exactly the emotion that we were supposed to feel there, and where Joel is really showing his soft side for Ellie, and really just embracing her, and, bringing her out of that, horrible situation she was in, and just showing that you are okay now. I got you. You helped me survive. We're here.
His purpose.
Yeah, and I know that's what it was meant for, and it did that. It did a beautiful job of that and everything like that. But just thinking about it, you're just I'm wondering if right off camera, there's just the crowd, the crowd of the town just going, well, thanks. What do we do now? We have no food and no leader.
Well, I think was it this episode? I think that there was the viral shot of the big city shot of the bridge, and you could see the camera crew in the bottom left corner of the shot, under the trees. They forgot to crop them out of the camera shot. Yeah, I don't know if it was this episode or one of the earlier ones, but I think I know it was one of the snow landscapes. But there's a shot of the camera crew in the bottom left corner. It was pretty funny.
I did not know that. I have to go back and look now.
It's kind of like when in Game of Thrones when they accidentally had the Starbucks cup on the set.
Right.
It's just those little things that they go right past your head.
but my brain is just going to what the town people were like. They were just I guess they're gone. Thanks for killing the bad guy. I just want to know. But anyway,
you liberated us.
Yeah. Freedom. Horrible freedom.
Yes. Back to animals.
Yeah. You want to get to some predictions?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Why don't you kick off predictions?
Okay. Well, next week is the finale, and it's a pretty darn good one, I gotta say. Like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to seeing the cameo by Ashley Johnson, who played Ellie in the first game, and kind of just seeing how they wrap up this story in a satisfying way, I would say. There's gonna be a lot of fun things to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we say predictions, but like with this series, like we've said, every single episode, we've both played the first video game. We both know, what this is moving towards. And so like predictions, we've kind of thrown that out. I mean, we're just saying predictions to say predictions because it's usually our last segment. But yeah, I mean, I am super excited for the finale. Super excited to kind of see. Now, we already know that they're getting a second season.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what they do with the second season because there's been a lot of news that's come out. I mean, whether or not they split the second season into, 2 parts or they do a second and third season, because I'm wondering, how long they're going to kind of stretch it out because, we really don't know how fast they're going to want to go from season 1 or from game 1 to part 2 type of thing. So they could do literally, they could wrap game 1 with the finale and then have a whole season that just would take place between part 1 and part 2. Then have a third season that is part 2 type of thing to really, build these characters and kind of get you, to where kind of part 2 is. Because part 2, I don't think either one of us has played part 2, but part 2 takes place sometime down the road type of thing.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how many seasons we're going to get. We already got to confirm for second season, but I really want to know what they're going to do because I don't know if 8 episodes is going to be able to wrap up, everything that's going to happen after.
No, I think that's why they're going to split the second game up into multiple seasons so they can get more story out of it, and that's where you can throw in a lot of the flashback stuff with other characters, and that's where you can work in a lot of that context for sure.
Yeah, but I am really excited to see how they're going to wrap up, season 1, how they're going to leave it going into season 2. And yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, this series has just been, a masterpiece and kind of, showing how great, if you work with the people who made the source material and you really, try to just lift up all of the source material and make, the little changes and little things even like to make it an addition instead of just kind of going with one little piece and then going off on your own thing. You can see how great a video game adaptation can really be. And that's what this entire series has really shown everybody. And I'm really hoping this kind of inspires, other creators, other directors and stuff like that to really, try to do this to other video games. But anyway, like we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 8? And, how do you think this season is going to wrap up? Are we going to see the conclusion that we saw, from part 1, the video game? And how are they going to do that? How are we going to get to that? And what are you excited to see in season 2 moving forward? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.